The Terry Sullivan Show. Today, from Johnson Beef Company, Mike Johnson. And featuring Rich Floyd and the Not a Real Band. And now, Terry Sullivan.
It's so good having you.
Oh.
Well, spoke too soon.
Spoke too soon.
I sure appreciate you sitting in for Terry.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. He does this a lot better than I do. But
Well, he's a great one, I'll tell you for sure. He's a great one.
Sure is.
Yeah, you guys go back to 16 years old,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time playing together and playing in bands together and
Yeah.
encouraging each other and
Right.
all of that. Yeah. He's on tour in California and Vegas and
Yeah, he's just out there burning it up, isn't he?
living the big life.
Yeah.
Living the big life. And you're at home in the air condition.
Yes.
But you stay very, very busy.
I try to, yes.
Well, you're the guy that you don't have to work too hard for it anymore. It's just you got a lot of years.
Yeah, that's true.
How's Joan doing?
She's doing great.
Yeah.
She's doing great, just working hard. And
She's the best part of you.
I agree to that. Absolutely.
You know, I've told you before, if something ever happened to Joan, you'd be homeless.
This is true. This is very true. I'd probably just be living out back somewhere.
In my cot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really glad you're here, Rich.
Pleasure to be here.
I was watching Mike. Mike, it's good to have you today.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for having me.
You are the epitome of a Texan, cowboy, cowboy down to the root. I was watching Mike while you were playing that guitar over there, and Mike, I could tell he was thinking, why can't we have just a little bit of Hank Williams over there, you know? Mike, it's good to have you.
Thank you.
This is a business, Johnson Feed Company, that's been in Lewisville since how long?
Well, since 1978.
And your dad and your mom started it.
Absolutely.
Let's go back that far.
Okay.
Who was your mom and dad?
Well, my dad was Gale Johnson. A lot of people knew him as CJ. He was a fireman in Lewisville, Captain Johnson for CJ, and my mom was Glenda Johnson. So my dad was a fireman, my mom was a homemaker.
Yeah.
And they moved here in 1960.
Yeah.
And so they've been around here a long, long, long time.
Yeah. Now your dad, he would come here to the barbecue restaurant just about every day before he passed. And I used to love to mess with him, and I would mess with him like I do everybody. And then I knew it was time for me. I knew when the time was for me to stop messing with him when he'd go, "Oh, now stop all that." I loved Gale Johnson.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, he was a great man, and he started Johnson Feed in 1978.
Yes, sir.
Long time ago. And for the longest time, now where you are right now was his dream.
I like to think so. Where my mom and dad started, I give them all the credit. You know, they had all the sweat equity in this, and I was just fortunate enough to be able to step into, you know, what's a successful business, but really just try to carry on with what my mom and dad started.
I know you said one time when your dad passed, and he passed 2 years ago?
October of 20.
October of 20. I remember that you said that your dream and your goal was to finish what he started. And
Yes.
you've done that. You're right here in Old Town on a beautiful piece of property.
Thank you.
And Johnson Feed has served the community, all of Texas, for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So tell me what it is that Johnson Feed really does.
Well, you know, it's changed over time. When my dad first started this business, again, he was a fireman, so it was his secondary job. So he would spend the mornings doing deliveries to ranches out in Flower Mound, and they were located out in Flower Mound at the time. And you know, the mornings when he got off duty would go out, pick up feed, take feed to different ranches, and they were only open in the afternoons. And it just grew and grew. And so, you know, what we did then was supplying a lot of feed for horses and cattle and ranches then, but it's changed a lot. You know, what we do now is a lot different. You know, we still serve ranches and we still, you know, sell horse feed and cattle feed, but we've had to change what we do with, you know, providing other services, whether it be, you know, things for your lawn, fertilizer and mulch and things like that. And, you know, we're trying to really do more with, you know, doing more flowers and vegetables and things like that. A lot more companion pet. There's a lot of people that live here in Lewisville that have backyard chickens. We do a lot of that, a lot of dog, cat food,
Wait a
things
minute.
like that.
People in Lewisville that have backyard chickens.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, it means you have chickens in your backyard.
Oh, I knew that was coming. Did you hear that, Trey? I set myself up for that. What is backyard chickens? I mean, you got chickens in your backyard. But so there are people in Lewisville, I mean, not in the residential area, right?
Sure,
That raise chickens.
Yeah, in town you can have up to 6. I think that's what the code says, is up to 6. And so most people just have 2 or 3 or 4 chickens in their backyard, and they have like a little small coop, and you know, they have their own eggs, and they'll have a little garden in the backyard. Today's society seems to be geared more towards kind of getting back to what our roots were, like little small gardens, and there's community gardens like the Upper Trinity Garden down there, and some of the churches have, you know, little gardens, and people enjoy that, the fresh vegetables and fresh things like that. But
You think we're getting, do you think the cost of groceries is driving a lot of people back to that?
not as much as I think it's people wanting cleaner food.
Okay.
I tell people all the time if they come in, if you're raising a garden or chickens to save money, you're not. It's just not feasible. But I think people just want something they know hadn't been treated with something, doesn't have chemicals on it. They just want a little cleaner food.
You know, my grandparents in East Texas were dairy farmers their whole life, but they also farmed. And my grandfather, way back in the day, he started a garden, a family garden, and it's a pretty large garden on the side of his house. And to this day, my aunts still cultivate that soil. I mean, that soil's been cultivated for almost 70 years. But I look forward to this time of year because I get my tomatoes. And my mom just brought me a box of tomatoes last week, and there's just nothing like them. No pesticides, and nothing like that. Just clean garden food.
And that's what a lot of people are looking for. The taste of something straight out of your garden is much different. But sometimes it's just the satisfaction of knowing you can do that. You can grow, you can put a seed in the ground and gain food from that. So a lot of people like that. Like for me, it's just something I enjoy doing. I don't play golf or anything like that, but I enjoy working in the garden and being able to grow food and things like that. I enjoy the taste of things straight out of the garden much better than something I'd buy from the store.
Now at Johnson Feed, what's the address over here on Church?
It's 224 South Charles.
South Charles, right around the corner, right across from Bent.
Correct.
Distillery, right around the corner from Sullivan Barbecue. Do you sell fresh vegetables out of the store?
We are in the midst of starting a small farmers market. It's been a little hard this year because the weather hadn't been really conducive, but we're trying to start that. And this is meant to be something not like any other farmers market around. I don't want to do things that are people are just going and buying at the Dallas Farmers Market and just coming down and selling. These are people that I know, customers of mine, friends of mine, that have produce left over from their garden. They just bring down and sell fresh.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be, I'm not trying to compete with a grocery store, but you know, I want people to be able to bring like fresh eggs. You know,
Yeah.
one of my customers, he's a beekeeper. He brings fresh honey, and I actually sell that at my store. And it's literally a mile away from where my store is. So
But
people like that.
It's cleaner food.
It is.
It's cleaner food. So when is that going to launch? When are people going to? When can people know that they can come to Johnson Feed and get fresh vegetables and eggs and all that?
Well, weather permitting, we'll try to start that this weekend.
All right.
So, you know, depending on what the weather looks like, you know, I don't know if there's a chance of rain, but you know, if it's raining, obviously people aren't going to want to get out and do that.
Yeah.
But you know, we'll probably start small this year because this is our first year. We tried it at the other store and it went well. We just didn't have the parking space.
Yeah.
And we have better parking now, so you know that's just something that I've wanted to do. I've wanted our store to feel like an old style feed store, not a Tractor Supply or anything like that. I wanted our store to feel like, you know, what it was like when you went with your grandfather to the feed store and you picked up things.
And I think you've done that. I mean, your hospitality. I don't know how to call it. It's Texas. It's just you are the epitome of Texas. You're a cowboy. You were raised that way. Your dad was that way. You were very close to your dad.
I was, and my mom.
And your mom, yeah. So, what was the one thing that your dad taught you that you still use every day in that business?
Well, when I first took over the store, and I came from corporate America, and I think my dad was worried that I would try to make this into some larger scale thing than what he ever intended. And my dad always used the term a mom and pop shop. And that's what he wanted it to remain. And so, you know, we work really hard to try to give people that feeling that when you come into our store, we're going to give you an exceptional product. We're going to give you the best service we can probably possibly give you, and the best price that we can do. You know, we're still a business. We're still trying to make money, but we're never going to take advantage of a situation where we could charge more just because we can, and we just don't do business that way. My dad was that way. I would say he was honest down to the bone.
No doubt about it.
And we've always tried to be that way.
He told you what you didn't want to hear, but you needed to hear.
Sometimes.
He was a straight shot. I love that about
Sometimes.
him. Just a great man. So, can people that have dogs and cats, they can come by feed from you, and of course horses and cows and everything else.
Correct.
That a farm has.
And we do a lot with the LISD FFA. I have to be careful not to say Lewisville FFA because we have so many high schools now, but it's the LISD FFA, and we work very closely with those kids to help supply them with what they need for their animals.
Yeah.
And you know, we still have ranches that we still serve, and you know, we make deliveries, you know, in probably 45, 50 mile radius to places.
Yeah.
And some of those people, you know, they've just been customers of ours for years. They may move away, but they still want to do business with us, and we try to accommodate that.
What's the one thing that you like the most about your business?
I mean, there's a lot of things. I enjoy helping people solve problems. You know, what I view us as, unlike a big box store, is we want to be that trusted advisor. We want to be that person that, you know, hey, if I go in there, I'm going to get a good answer. You know, some of the big box stores, you know, those they don't really know the products. They don't really understand what, you know, my background, my education. I know the science behind the feed. I know the science behind the soil testing and the fertilizers and those sorts of things from my background. So, you know, we want to be that place that you feel like you can go and get a straight answer.
Was it your dad's dream, always his dream, for you to come into the family business?
He did. Early on after college, I just couldn't make enough money in that business.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Texas A&M University.
And you studied ag?
Animal science.
Animal science.
Yeah, I was an animal science major. And originally I had intended to work for a large feed company, But as I went through school, I got really interested in the meat industry. So I worked for a while in the meat industry, and then later on went into the kind of more into medicine. So, but yes, my dad always kind of envisioned me doing this and kind of picking up where he left off. And consequently, my kids want the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he always talked about it. I mean, he always talked. So he was so proud of you.
Thank you.
So proud of you, and he has every right to be. Right now, you've carried on the family business. You've built a wonderful store in Old Town Lewisville, and it's kind of uncommon for a feed store to be right in the heart of Old Town of a city. Right. But you've done that. You've done it well. So, do you sell medications over there for animals?
I do. You know, we sell things that obviously aren't prescription medicines. But things that you can treat various different things, that, and there's recently been a change where we can no longer sell antibiotics. That just changed June 1st, which is going to upset a lot of people that have been used to using that themselves. But yes, we do. We sell a lot of different things for that, for fly control, internal parasites, things like that.
Yeah. What's the most volatile product that you sell? Would it be hay that is so controlled about nature or from nature?
Maybe, yeah, I guess.
Do you have to get it from all different vendors, or?
I do. My dad was an old racehorse guy, and my dad was adamant about selling the best hay we could possibly get. And so I drive about an hour and a half to get my hay from a guy that my dad bought hay from for years, and their hay is superior quality.
What makes it that way?
Well, a lot of that is just understanding how to do it, but the other piece of that is they irrigate their hay, so they're able to keep the right amount of water on it. This same gentleman owns a feed store as well, and so they have a big fertilizer business. So they fertilize, they cut their hay every 28 days. It's just superior quality. But from a horse's perspective, a horse is a herbivore, so they like grass. That's what they'd rather have. They'd rather have that than anything else you can feed them is grass. And my dad was adamant about feed the best hay you can possibly feed, and your horses will do better.
What's the difference between just coastal hay and alfalfa?
Alfalfa's a legume, and coastal's a grass. Alfalfa is usually a little higher in protein, a little higher in energy, but alfalfa can be a little bit difficult grown in Texas because of a blister beetle. And if that blister beetle gets baled up in that hay, it can be toxic to a horse. So we buy our hay from a place that gets it out of Arizona, where it's not as likely to get that blister beetle. The dryland hay, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, sometimes it's not quite as risky.
So when a rancher comes in and he buys alfalfa hay, what is he hoping to accomplish with that?
Well, and those are discussions that sometimes we have with the horseman, horsewoman, why you're feeding, what you're feeding. If your horse is just standing around and you just ride it periodically, there's really no real need to feed your horse that alfalfa. But if it's a performance horse, whether it be a reining horse, roping horse, race horse, sometimes they need that little extra, just like an athlete. Horses, horses typically aren't considered in the livestock group. They're more athletic, and usually people don't consider them livestock like cattle, and pigs, sheep, goats. That's more of a livestock. Horses are more of a working animal and more of an athlete.
Do you have a customer? You have any customers that have? I mean, you know, the average person these days, Mike, have no idea how expensive animals can be.
Very.
What customer, you don't have to name the customer, has an animal, whether it be a bull or a horse, has an expensive animal? And what number would that be?
Well, I mean, that's a broad stroke of the brush, and I'll tell you why. If you're in the horse business and you have performance horses, I mean, race horses are very expensive. If you have a barrel horse, these young ladies and young women that have barrel horses, I mean, some of those barrel horses are $30,000, $50,000. You know, they're very expensive. But then I have one customer has PBR bulls. So, you know, if he has a very good bull, I mean, that bull can be worth thousands and thousands of dollars. Then if you have someone like one of our FFA kids that wants to show a steer, if you want to be in the steer game and you want to compete, you're probably talking about spending $15,000 to $30,000 on a steer. So some of those animals are just very expensive.
Yeah. Going back to your dad, I keep going back to your dad because I loved him a lot, as the whole community did. What a great turnout at his funeral, at his service. It was a great turnout. It was a great service. Were you nervous about making him proud?
You know, it's funny you say that. I was a little nervous in one way when I decided to speak at my dad's funeral, and here's why. When we go to a funeral, which, you know, nobody likes going to a funeral, obviously, but it's a celebration of life. But when someone gets up and tries to speak and they're so emotional and they can't, it makes everybody feel very uncomfortable, and you just feel sorry for that person. So when I decided to do that at my dad's funeral, I asked my wife, and my wife's a big part of what we do at Johnson Feed. I don't want to leave that off, but I asked her, I said, what do you think? Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think about me doing Dad's funeral? And she said, well, she said, I will tell you how he would feel. She said he would be very proud that you did it, but he'd be very nervous for you. And so shortly before I went in, and I was nervous, but telling my dad's story was easy for me. I could talk about my dad and my mom. My mom's been gone since '08, but I could talk about them a lot because I was so proud of being their son. Yeah. I'm an only child, and so, you know, we were a very, very close family. But, you know, a gentleman told me a story. He'd been a pastor here in Lewisville, and this is a really good litmus of what my dad was like. He said, right before I went in, he said, you know, your dad was one of those people that if there was somebody in need, I could go to him. And he said, the only question he would ask me is, do they have a job? And he said, he just cared that they were trying, but he said he would always help. He said, if I needed help for a family in need, your dad would always help. He said he just wanted them to be trying. And I always remember that when my dad was part of his feed business is, if somebody just couldn't afford the feed, my dad would give them the feed. He didn't want to see an animal go without. He didn't want to see a family, you know, struggling. As long as they were trying, as long as they were putting forth an effort, he'd just give you the feed.
Yeah. A lot of those old timers were like that, you know. It's kind of a lost art in this day and time because people seem to be more into themselves, and it's all about me and not about anybody else. A friend of mine was the same way, and you know the friend, Walt Garrison, was the same way. As big as he got in life, and of course he's a Lewisville celebrity, born and raised here, but as big as he got in life, he was always willing to help. He'd give you the shirt off his back, but he was the same way. He wanted to make sure that you were trying to do better, trying to better yourself, and I think Walt was a customer of yours for the longest time.
And you know, he was one of those people that, even though he had been on the big stage, so to speak, his roots were still here. And I remember when he opened that Copenhagen Skull Rodeo office, I was in high school.
Right.
And that was one of the things that made Lewisville cool.
Yeah, it was.
We had Walt Garrison in our town.
Yeah.
He's a local celebrity. And it was just really cool to have that in Lewisville.
I don't know how many guys or women who have been on the big stage and played in the NFL and rodeo champion and all that were as down to earth as Walt, and would just talk to anybody about anything and could converse with anybody.
I got to interview him when I was in college. I had to do an interview on someone for a journalism class that had done something significant. And a lady that worked for him, I talked to her and she said, "Oh yeah, he'll do it." So I sat down with him and talked to him for, I bet, 2 hours at his office, and it was fabulous.
Yeah, yeah. What does your wife do for Johnson Feed? But by the way, she is a remarkable woman.
She is. I like to tell the story about my wife. I was smart enough to marry somebody a lot smarter than me.
Oh, there you go.
And my wife and I met at A&M, and she was an educator, and she started off. She taught for a while and then became a principal. But my wife was way smarter than me. She retired as a assistant superintendent, and just really, someone that you can count on. And what's really cool for me is when I think of the way my mom and dad started this business, my dad was the one that did all the physical work, and my mom's been gone a while, so a lot of people don't know her, but she was the glue. And my mom was the one that took care of all the finances. She was kind of the glue. My dad was the one that kind of knew the horses and the cattle business. But my mom really understood how to make that work. Well, now we've come full cycle, and my wife and I are doing the same thing. And my wife retired from the school district probably about 3 years ago, and she helps me kind of do those same things. She does a lot of the stuff.
She's your rock.
She is, and the things in my store that are cute, that our female customers really love, it's not because of me. I can't do that stuff. I'm more practical. My wife's a lot more fun. She does the fun things, and she puts the fun things in the store. She was a very big part of us doing the flowers. That's just not my thing. And so we make a really good team.
Yeah, you do, Mike.
She's awesome.
You have a great family, great kids, great grandkids. You have a great business. It's a long-time business for Lewisville, and Lewisville is very proud of the business and very proud of who you are and how you represent our town. I appreciate you being here.
Okay.
Rich, let's go, Bubba.